Hello and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sarah Carter. I am the host for today. I am a customer success manager for Modal, and we are going to have a fireside chat with the Bob Moore Automotive Group. They're out of Oklahoma City, and they launched Modal in November of 2018, and we are extremely grateful for their partnership. And I personally handle their account. It's been a pleasure working with the team at Bob Moore Automotive Group, and today we will have a special guest from the organization. So just a couple of things to note. First of all, Bob Moore had early adoption, obviously, November of 2018. We have continued working together in partnership. More recently, have collected a little bit more data on the dealership side of the corporate level. Just a couple of items we wanted to note based on the feedback and the reporting. First, the earned average of 25% more back-end profit on modal orders was documented and recorded from January through April of 2020. So just to note, they are seeing an increase in overall back-end profit for online orders. And on average, over in-store back-end profit, that's 25% more. So it's really exciting to hear, and I know that they will be speaking more on that. And of course, another note is the increased average of monthly orders. So by April of 2020, it was an 18%, and by May of 2020, up 27%. So pretty exciting. Our guest today, of course, is Luke Moore. Luke, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to have you with us here today. So just a little background on Luke. Luke started at Nissan as a salesperson in 2014 and graduated from ORU with a business management degree in 2017. He worked at Bob Moore as a financial analyst and moved to the Decision Operation Group Support Team, which uses finance to develop solutions for the organization. He was asked to lead Bob Moore Auto Group's online retailing efforts as the digital experience manager. And I have had the pleasure and honor of working with Luke since the end of 2019. So glad to have you here today, Luke. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Yes. So, and just to note too, to our guests, if you have questions for Luke, you can put them in the chat feature. So feel free to go ahead and chat your question or your feedback, and we'll check that occasionally so we can make sure to address any questions that come up. We did actually get some questions from our clients, customers, as well as prospective customers or dealerships that are looking or utilizing digital retailing services in general. So we do have some questions that we are going to focus on, and of course, we will also be able to address any questions that you have during the fireside chat. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into a few of the questions, Luke, that have been presented. First, and it seems to be kind of a hot topic, was, how has COVID-19 affected your business at Bob Moore Automotive Group?
Well, COVID-19 initially, we're based out of Oklahoma. I don't know if you've seen it in the news, but half Oklahoma might not believe in COVID-19. So at the start of COVID-19, we really didn't see a major effect. But getting into after about 2 or 3 months, especially after layoffs began, we saw a drop in sales across the entire group, not just online, but in total sales. It was interesting, though, that our website traffic, even though the average income for Oklahoma was dropping, our website traffic and people interested in cars was peaking. So we had a lot of interest, but we didn't have a lot of buyers. And then we've also had some inventory issues as well. So we've been having to deal with quite a bit of a couple different factors affecting our group in the way we're doing business. With all of that, we actually chose not to drop car prices going into COVID. A lot of our groups around us dropped car prices. We actually raised prices slightly on our cars, and we made a couple policies where we would sell no cars at a loss. Sometimes we have to get rid of cars, but we made a policy to sell no cars at a loss. So those are the main things that have affected our business going into COVID-19.
Great. Yeah, no, it's been a trying time. It's definitely been a year of adapting. I'm curious too, just from our experience together, and this is a question I have for you as well, a little off script here, but specifically to, the initiatives that you took at the first of the year with coming into digital retailing. How do you think that prepared you for the experience and obviously, COVID?
Well, we got lucky. I mean, we definitely didn't have a glass ball. We didn't see it coming. But what was nice is you were able to come out here and you personally trained a lot of our team and our staff. So as our online interest started to increase, we started getting flooded with leads. And being able to work in person early on in the year, our team was quite well versed on how to handle people trying to buy a car online versus some of the different pain points that people have coming into the store, not and they're doing deliveries. So we were able to get a lot of experience before it kind of became something that a lot of customers were requesting. So I think we got lucky starting this at the beginning of the year. And it's enabled us to really hone in our experience and give our customers a good experience and not have to trial it going through this.
Hey, Brandy. I think Sarah might be having some audio issues.
Sure. So I'll take over. Luke, how are you? Sorry about that. So I think some more questions were, what were your goals when you started working with Modal? What were you expecting us to do as far as helping you through this experience?
Well, we had a couple database goals starting with Modal. Our first goal was figure out how to sell a car online. That's tricky. So that was our first goal. Our next goal was we had done some research and we found that about 1 or 2% of cars were being sold or being recorded as sold this online. And so we wanted to make sure that our group was selling 1 or 2% of our inventory online by the end of this year. So those were two of our goals that we had established. Another goal that we wanted to establish is we wanted to make sure that we were not forfeiting our F&I and back end just to be able to say that we were selling a car online. Because moving into this, we were a little hesitant about how selling products would go since we don't have our F&I managers communicating with customers. So those were our three primary goals when we start, and pain points as well when we were starting to work with Modal.
Great. So for dealers that are on here that either are using another service or who are thinking about getting into digital retailing, what do you think was the first most important thing that needed to be locked in from an internal dealer perspective, like the process? So what's the first thing they need to lock in? Because we can all put a widget on a website, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the first thing that you think will key every dealer here up for success when they actually go live?
I would say the key, and my stores that are having the most success, the key is mindset. I think something that we've done is we've assumed every car is an online sale. The customer is just choosing to pick it up at the store or to pick it up at home or get it delivered at home. So I think a mindset is huge. A lot of our general managers who have struggled and don't make a lot through the online sales are general managers who don't buy in to allowing Modal to work the deal. They want to try and get people off the deal as fast as possible and then get a sales associate involved and start talking and going back to the old ways. The people buying their car online are people who have had bad experiences online or are people who want to try something new. And so whenever we have, I'll call it old style sales, trying to pull them back to the old way to get back to our comfort zone, we haven't had a lot of success. So allowing our customers to try and use the tool and continuing to keep them in the tool is where we found a lot of success.
Yeah. I'm back, Brandy and Luke. Sorry about that audio issues here. But thank you, Brandy. And yes, that's such a good point to be made, Luke. And it's definitely something been able to recognize within the organization. And yeah, so great. Sorry, guys. So another question that was presented, what changes have you made to adapt to the new normal? So obviously, I know you had some changes there.
Well, a couple changes that we're currently adapting to that we haven't finished or I guess, found the perfect spot yet, is how do we compensate our sales associates? If we start selling more cars online, that's a deal going to a computer. Um, do we credit a sales associate for doing the delivery? Do we need to create a new role in the organization which specializes in deliveries? Um, I guess handling the way our people look at the deals. A lot of people don't like on sales. They see it as competition. If you're selling, 10, 15, 20 cars out of a store a month through online sales, that's a full sales associate who's he's having to compete with. So that was one of the changes that we've had to look at, and we're still evaluating is how are we treating our online sales, and where do we push the comp for that.
Absolutely.
And another change that we had to make as well is the F&I offerings. Rather than doing a personalized deal, we had to work with the group, and you guys worked with the group EFG to come up with deals that would hit the majority of the audience, and that was adapting to cars. I think that was a huge part, and that was a lot of work that we put in to try and get EFG and you guys working together to make that, I guess, that F&I offering playbook. That was something that we had to adapt to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great, yeah, to be able to dynamically work with your warranty company and present that has definitely had an impact. I know, referring back to the back end, from a profit standpoint, I know we've looked at multiple reports, and you guys have been looking at reporting and data since at least the first of the year, as mentioned early on. But overall, your back end gross profit is looking really strong, correct?
Yeah, and we have, and I sent you the numbers for almost every month. We make more on back end for new and used on online sales.
Mhm. Very good. That's great. And obviously too, back to, just as you're seeing, the adoption from your teams and strategy wise, have you guys been incorporating more training in the stores, or what does that look like for the teams?
Well, since society still doesn't want to buy every single car online, what we've done is we've found a couple sales associates, and we've made them also delivery experts. And so they're getting extra training on how to handle someone who calls in about a car. If someone's calling in on a car that they think they've already bought online, they just need to sign the paperwork. We shouldn't answer the phone asking, "Hey, how can I help you buy a car?" A big part of the training was greeting people with, "Hey, thank you for making your purchase. Come in, sign the paperwork, and pick it up. We're excited to see you." That was a big change, and we're still pushing that. When people buy a car online, they think they've already bought it, even though they haven't come in and signed the final paperwork, and you need to treat them that way.
Yes, absolutely. That's great. All right. Just to mention too, before we get to the next question, if you have any questions for attendees, those on the line, feel free to use the chat feature, and we can address those questions here with Luke. But Luke, let's go ahead and get into the next question, which is, what can dealers do to hold front end and back end growth? So I think this kind of goes along with the conversation we were just having. But have you guys had any thoughts and or implemented any strategies for this?
So um, I'll separate them. We'll talk about the front end and the back end. On the front end, I don't have a lot of advice. It's all about pricing the car right. And online sales, there's no negotiation. So if you price the car right, you're going to hold front end. And buying the right cars, having the right inventory is huge to that. I don't know if there's not really a trick or a secret in the online sale, but there's no negotiation. So if you're losing front end, your car's priced too low. So it's very simple. And customers online, you don't give them the option to negotiate, so they don't expect to negotiate.
Mhm.
And then on the back end gross, what we're seeing is a lot of people are buying more product. So it's not just a higher value on individual products. They're adding maybe one more product than they normally would have, because it is a click of a button, and because it doesn't look like we're sliding dollars into the deal. As they add it, they can see it adding up to their total buy. So to us, it's a form of transparency on the back end, because most people, when buying a car, feel like the back end is where we just try and sell them a bunch of stuff. which we are trying
Yep.
to sell them a bunch of stuff. But if they're the ones clicking it and they're the ones seeing the price add up to the total purchase, it makes them more comfortable. Like, yeah, this is the stuff I want. I want to have my car protected. I want the wheel deal. I want the windshield.
Yep. And there's transparency in that. Absolutely. That's great. Wonderful. Well, great feedback. And I actually, I can, I know that we've been having these conversations and too, actually just in relation to that, do you feel like your F&I department's been pretty adaptive and or progressive when it comes to digital retailing?
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting feel. So one thing that we're having to fight is the F&I departments are starting to date themselves. Some F&I departments are getting a little nervous because they're recognizing, oh crap, this tool can do my job. And crap, it's making more than I am. So um, F&I departments, I don't see them going away. You're still going to need people to pencil deals with bad credit that are really hard to get done. But, in their head, they're starting to see, oh my gosh, I used to have to sit here and grind and figure out how to get these packages and come up with a sales pitch. Now there's just a tool doing it. So I think that the F&I departments are actually fighting us. And Sarah, we've seen this. Our F&I departments sometimes fight us on the offerings and tools because they're kind of afraid of it because it's doing their job.
Right. Yeah. And there's a great way to blend it. Like as you just mentioned, it's just a matter of getting that buy-in and so that they progressively see the opportunities that could present themselves too. But that is such a challenge. Yes. No, very much so. Well, if anyone has any questions, again, please feel free to use the chat feature. And we can definitely ask Luke those questions. We'll give just another minute here while we wrap up. So I'll be looking up at the chat feature, or feel free to speak up as well if you have any questions. I don't know if we have you on mute. In any case, let's actually see. I see something here in the chat. Oh, here we go. We have a question. All right, Luke, do you offer the ability to unwind the transaction if the vehicle is not to their standards?
To unwind the transaction. When he says unwind the transaction, is this the person, has they already purchased it and they've gone home for a day or two, or they're in the middle of the deal and they're deciding to back out? I would have to.
So they've completed an order. However, when they end up, when the customer either comes in on site or maybe they're doing a virtual deal, decides obviously they don't want the vehicle anymore. Do you offer that ability to essentially back out of the deal after they've converted on an order?
So if someone's placed the order and it says, come pick the car up, a lot of times you'll see customers try and start reworking the deal in person because they'll realize I didn't have the ability to negotiate. They'll try and start backing themselves out. Sometimes they'll come to the store picking up the car and all of a sudden they see a car on the lot, but they've decided, you know what, I might actually want to go for that car. And it's really easy to transfer them over on cars. Now, we haven't released a policy yet for purchase and return. So if someone actually finishes the deal all the way, comes and signs the paperwork, takes the car home, we don't have a policy yet for the return. I know that Carvana does a 7-day car return, and we've been looking at and running the numbers on what a return policy would do to us. So we don't have that yet. But as far as while someone's still at the store, there all the time you can work and repencil the deal. We'd really try and push our group not to, because the dealership almost never wins when you repencil the deal, we found. But we definitely have the ability to. Sometimes on low credit customers, it's necessary.
Right, absolutely. All right, great, thank you.
I hope that answered his question.
Yeah, no, that was exactly, yeah, that was perfect. We've got another one. So we've got, how important is DMS integration? Which of course we're not directly integrating with DMS for digital retailing checkout. But there is the question of what are some of the hurdles from the integration standpoint with your existing systems? So as we've built out digital retailing, I'm sure that probably would incorporate the instant approval process that you guys have as well with DealerTrack.
So I'll try and answer this question. I am not the DMS expert in my group, but when we started with Modal, we had a BDC that we were pushing all the leads to, and they were trained to respond with these deals differently than traditional leads. We still consider all of them leads in-house until someone signed the paperwork. It's just a very strong lead, but to the customer, we never treat them as if they're trying to buy a car. We treat them as if they bought the car, and it was all about training. An issue that we found is a lot of times our sales associates or a B2C, depending on what time frame we're talking about, respond. They would get lazy and not read the details about what was in this lead. So sometimes someone halfway went through the deal and backed out. That sales associate might call them, congratulating them on the purchase, and then all of a sudden you've got a customer who's freaking out thinking he accidentally bought a car when he backed out and looked at something else. So one issue we had is you have to make sure your team is due diligent. But if you have a team that's good and is trainable and is due diligent in reading the information and coming in, people are quite receptive and respond quite a lot. I hope that answered the question as well.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think those are key points. So we have another really good question here. You have mentioned some old style techniques that may have needed to be changed or adapted during these times. How do you, as a younger person in this industry, successfully implement change when there might be some older dogs pushing against it?
Well, I'll give a little bit of I have a trump card. My dad owns the group, so a lot of the old dogs don't really have the ability to argue. So that's one thing I have. So I don't know if my word is good on what your implementation would be. But one thing that I found is everyone's most sensitive part of their body is their wallet. And if you take them the evidence, you take them an Excel sheet, you run the numbers, you put it together, and you go, look, I don't care what you say. You're making more money on these leads. I guarantee that older GM is going to get interested. And then after we go through the numbers, a lot of our older GMs who are all about the money, they get real interested and starting to look at it. And we've had a lot of buy-in from the older GMs. The GMs that we found struggle are the GMs that sometimes might not be the most ethical. We don't have any of those in our group anymore, but we had a couple that would use Modal and they didn't like it because it was hard to go in and rework or do a bait and switch on a car when someone's doing everything online. And so I think for those GMs, this tool might help you find groups that are doing that or not, because they'll really struggle on using this tool to do car switches and some other techniques that we don't approve of.
Yeah, no, great. Very good. All right, we have one more here, actually two more. So let's, do you use Modal to sell in the store?
We have one store, right? So I don't know, our group, we have 15 brands and 13 locations. Our Subaru store is starting to look at using the shop tool. I think that question's in reference to the shop tool.
Yes.
They're starting to experiment with it. And our GM there, he's younger. He's in his early 30s. He loves the tool, and he's trying to figure out how to get one sales associate, maybe two's a sales associate, who are highly trained and do everything on an iPad. So we'll see. We haven't had success on it because we haven't launched it yet. They're still just practicing and working friend deals that way. But we haven't had a GM take it and run with it yet. So, and we let our GMs have a little bit of freedom. So I can say we don't have anyone doing it right now, but we have a group getting ready to use it and launch it. We might be a little delayed because Sarah's not coming to Oklahoma anytime
I
soon.
know. Well, I'm glad to hear that, though. It's exciting, and look forward to virtually or remotely working with the teams as we implement that. So that's great. All right. Well, another question here. Does it make for a lot of extra work since it isn't fully integrated with your dealer systems?
Extra work. I think that the first couple times someone uses it, it feels like extra work. So the simple answer in the short term is yes, it's extra work. But after, like any tool, any software, after you use it a couple times, after you start getting in, 10, 15, 20, 30, to 100 leads coming in on modal orders, it becomes very normal and very just another tool. It's not a lot of extra work. If you're not pushing people to use the tool and you're getting 1 or 2 orders, and so it's something you're not getting to practice, it will probably feel like extra work because there's a couple extra steps on how to pull the information and look. So short answer, it's a little bit of work, but if you're using the tool, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, and soon too, the dashboard will also help with that as well. So
Yes.
the integration aspects are coming along, which is great. Wonderful. So we have one last question that we'll wrap up with here. And thank you everyone for attending. And Luke, thank you so much for coming and being our guest today for our fireside chat. This has been wonderful. But just looking back as we discuss digital retailing, do you have a most memorable experience with digital retailing since you've taken on the digital experience at Bob Moore?
Yeah, my biggest memory, and I kind of mentioned it, is one of the GMs absolutely hated online retail. He hated it, and it was fun to take into him and show him, a deal where he made $5,000 front on a car, which doesn't happen very often anymore. He made $5,000 up front on a car, and he was excited. That was a fun experience because he basically apologized, which GMs don't do that very often. So that was probably my favorite experience with the online retailing experience so far.
Yeah, that's really exciting. It's great to see, and I enjoy speaking with the general managers as well, and getting their feedback and seeing their buy-in as well as they are getting more and more progressive. So this is great, and with your leadership with the digital retailing, I think yeah, it's exciting to see. Looking forward to where things go and continuing obviously our partnership. Greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and. For everyone too that was on the session, feel free to also, if you have any questions after the session you'd like to ask Luke, email success@modalup.com, and we can make sure that those questions get to Luke. Thank you again. Thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon. Luke, have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll be chatting soon, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you very much. You have a great day.
All right, thank you. You too. Bye-bye.